Highguard has probably been one of the strangest video game releases in recent times, and very little of that has to do with the actual game itself, and more to do with the sort of weird conversation around it. For anyone who's not caught up, Highguard was first unveiled in December 2025 at the Game Awards. Specifically, the reveal trailer for Highguard was the very last thing shown at the Game Awards. The trailer itself is fine overall. I think a fair summary of the general consensus would be that it came across as a fairly generic looking hero shooter in a landscape where we've seen quite a lot of those come and go, most notably Concord. I think if this had been situated somewhere in the middle of the Game Awards, I don't think people would have paid much attention to it, to be honest, but the fact that it was the closer kind of riled everyone up. I think in addition to it looking kind of generic, there was a bit of an anger at the sort of audacity of it taking the place of something which should traditionally sort of blow your socks off. So there was already this sort of built up hatred towards the game in the lead up to the launch, and the developers after the Game Awards just went completely radio silent, which was also kind of strange. Again, I didn't have any particularly strong opinion on Highguard after the reveal. I'm not really someone who gets too high or low on games early on before there are actual reviews or I've had the chance to play them myself. The thing that annoyed me more than anything else about it is at the start of the trailer it says, "From the creators of Titanfall and Apex Legends." I take a sort of fundamental issue with that because the creators of Titanfall and Apex Legends are Respawn Entertainment. Highguard, on the other hand, comes from a totally new studio called Wildlight Entertainment. Whilst Wildlight is made up of a lot of ex-Respawn people, as best I can tell, it doesn't look like any of the key Wildlight people were particularly instrumental in the creation of Apex Legends or Titanfall. For example, the two founders of Wildlight, according to their own website, are Dusty Welch and Chad Grenier. According to Moby Games, Welch was literally just part of the marketing team for Titanfall 1. He was COO during Titanfall 2, which is a significant role, not necessarily one that's directly linked to the development of the game. I would say that's probably more about running the actual company. Then he was VP of Strategy and Operations during Apex Legends, which again is probably an important role, but not one that jumps out as being a creator of Apex Legends or the creator of Apex Legends. Grenier, on the other hand, was one of many designers on the original Titanfall. He was one of several senior designers on Titanfall 2, and he was a lead scripter, which is a narrative-based role on Apex Legends, a battle royale game. I really don't want to downplay the role that these guys or any other members of their team might have played in bringing us Titanfall and Apex Legends. They certainly did contribute. However, they were just one small part of a much larger overall team, and the roles that they occupied were not necessarily the roles that you would consider more crucial, i.e. a game director, a creative director, etc. And as I said before, they're no longer at Respawn, which was the team that created Titanfall and Apex Legends. So to begin their reveal trailer with "from the creators of Titanfall and Apex Legends" is just a fucking straight up lie. And it really pissed me off, to be honest. It's really misleading to the point where I've seen people in comments and things saying about Highguard stuff like, "Oh, this is what we got instead of Titanfall 3, which if you know anything about games, doesn't make sense in the slightest. With that being said, though, I did see that in the last couple of days they removed this reference from their Steam page, so it seems like maybe someone from EA took issue with them and got on the phone, perhaps. Anyway, what actually is Highguard? Well, as I'll get into in a bit more detail shortly, that seems to be kind of in flux at the moment. Originally, it was a 3 versus 3 competitive raid shooter, as Wildlight call it. It's essentially a hero shooter where you play as Overwatch-esque characters, but where it mashes together various parts of modes from other games. Overall, the objective of a match is to destroy the other team's base, while stopping them from destroying your base, similar to a MOBA. At the very start of a match, you will spawn into your base after picking your character and have a chance to reinforce some of the walls of the base to make them harder for the other team to break down. Then begins the looting phase, where you ride around on the large map on your mount, trying to find chests or mine resources to get guns, armour and the other stuff you need. After that, a magic sword will spawn somewhere near the middle of the map. The two teams need to fight over that and try to bring the sword to the other team's base to start a raid on said base. This phase of the game is essentially just one flag, capture the flag. If no team succeeds in this by the time the timer runs down, then there's like an overtime mechanic that kicks in where there are limited respawns and the last team standing will sort of win by default. Either winning by default or getting the flag to the other enemy's base causes this large battering ram to spawn, which breaks the shield protecting said base and allows you to get inside. Now this is where Highguard becomes akin to something more like a Counter-Strike, but with respawns. There are 3 spots within the base where you can plant a bomb. There are 2 shield generators marked A and B, and then a central core. You can win the game by either blowing up both shield generators or the central core on its own. You have a limited time and a limited number of respawns to try and do this, and if you don't succeed, the raid will end and the whole process will start again. And each time the looting phase rolls round, the loot that you find can be a bit higher rarity and the guns and stuff you'll get are a bit better. And that sort of repeats until one team either destroys the other team's base fully, or there's also like a team health bar that you're chipping away at as you're doing this, so whatever you do first, someone will win. I've had games last literally 5 to 7 minutes, and I've had games last all the way to about half an hour-ish. It really varies quite broadly depending on how competitive or not it is. And does that sound like a lot? Was that a lot to take in? Was that a lot of mechanics? Because it really is. I want to kind of start with the positive stuff first. I think the gunplay's good. I think the shooting feels good. The time to kill is quite low, which is subjective to some people, but that's to my preference. I really dig the fantasy vibe of the game. You know, your fantasy characters riding around on mounts, but you've got assault rifles. I think that's really cool. As with most hero shooters, I've found some of the characters pretty fun to play, some of them not so much. There's a fire guy whose name escapes me who I was having quite a bit of fun with last night. When Highguard is fun and when it works, it is really, really fun. I've had some immensely thrilling moments playing it, like riding after an enemy with the flag as he's trying to get it to your base and he's ahead of you and you're trying to shoot him with an assault rifle from horseback, or just getting in and defusing a bomb in the nick of time after, you know, using your ult to get a couple of kills and create a window for you to do that. You know, because the core of the game is good, it's able to create those moments. But man, the whole format of the sort of game mode that they've went with overall just sucks. There are just so many superfluous mechanics that get in the way of the things that are actually good about the game. The whole preparation phase at the start of the game is pointless, because even the reinforced walls are pretty easy to break down, and even if you can't break them down, there's so many walls that it's easy to just find one that isn't reinforced. So this whole bit at the start of the game just feels like a total waste of time. And then I find the looting phase of the game just so frustrating and annoying. Basically the main things you need are 2 guns, armour and a helmet. There are other things that you can find, but those are the things you really need or you are fucked. And your armour breaks every time that you die, so you need a kind of stock of them to keep yourself armoured through multiple lives. Sometimes I'll ride out and I'll find the things I need, I'll find the guns that I like, and everything will be fine. Other times I would find that I'd really struggle to find chests, or at least ones that my teammates hadn't got to already, and then I'd find myself with the flag about to spawn in, with no armour or very little armour, using crap guns that I don't want to use and scrambling about trying to mine resources to go to the shop to maybe try and pick up something to make it better. And then I'd get to the shop and realise, oh shit, the shop doesn't actually have the thing that I wanted to buy anyway, so I guess I'm just going to have a bad time for this part of the game. And the looting phase only lasts a couple of minutes, so because the maps are so big, it's not that hard to sort of take a wrong turn and then find yourself in a situation where you've got 30 seconds and you're in bother, basically. I just don't like my ability to actually participate in the game being controlled by some bullshit feeling randomness. I would have much preferred if they went for like an Overwatch approach where specific characters just have specific weapons, or just let me pick a loadout. The downside to that is obviously you potentially miss out on the joy of stumbling across a rare weapon later in the game that's really fun to use, but I think I'd happily trade that at this point. And I wonder if there is some way they could come up with a system where they let you pick a loadout, but you can still kind of upgrade it as the match goes on, and then that way you kind of get the best of both worlds, where there's no randomness, but you're still getting a sense of progression as the game ramps up. And then once you get the looting phase out the way and the sort of capture the flag portion of the game starts, that can sometimes feel unsatisfying. Again, in the 3v3 mode, because the maps are pretty big, there are situations where someone can grab the flag pretty quickly, juke around a corner and kind of be gone without you really having a chance to do anything about them. And then that whole part of the game, the whole kind of major first conflict point that the game's supposed to be ramping up to, is over in like 30 seconds, and it just feels like a bit of a waste of time. As I alluded to before, Wildlight have tried to solve this, along with some other complaints people had about, you know, the number of players and map sizes and stuff, by creating a 5v5 mode, at least temporarily just now. Having spent a bit of time playing that last night, it definitely does help the matches feel more lively and more high octane. There's more action, you're getting more opportunities to fight players. It does improve things overall, but it does also bring attention to what my next issue with the game is. Because of how Highguard functions and how kind of complicated it is, team play is really important. You know, the time to kill is short, but not to the stage where someone could easily 3v1 someone or 5v1 a team, right? Like, you're going to get outnumbered and you're going to die. So it's not a game where you can lone wolf it at all. Like, you need to play as a team. You need to play objectives at least somewhat coherently to have a chance of success. And if you don't do that and the other team do, you're just going to get steamrolled and you're going to have literally no fun at all. It's going to be a miserable experience from start to finish. I generally play games alone because I'm old and tired and can't be bothered talking to people. And I've had stretches of like 4 or 5 games of Highguard that have just been totally miserable, where everyone on my team has just basically been trying to play Call of Duty and we've just been getting absolutely murdered. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make out like I am anything special at all. I am not. I am totally bang average at the game, but at least I try and play it properly. So whilst making the game 5v5 does solve some of the early problems with it, it also kind of highlights this issue because there's more scope for you to be even more outnumbered by even more players. And the more I think about it, the more I can totally understand how Highguard gets developed and how it comes out in the sort of final format that it does. I would bet significant money that this game, in a closed environment where everyone involved knows the script and everyone involved is trying to play tactically and communicating and playing the game properly, I bet it's a total blast. As I said before, I have definitely had some amazing moments with it, and all of that has been when the format has worked and everyone's kind of bought into it and playing it the way it should be. But I think that just happens all too infrequently, I'm afraid, and I just don't think this format translates well into a live environment at all. There's too much downtime, there's too many pointless, not fun mechanics, and it's too reliant on you having teammates that actually know how to play the game. I kind of almost wish they had just gone with like a straight MOBA format. And I'm not even someone who's ever really played MOBAs, but I could totally picture myself playing as these characters in a lane, killing creeps, pushing towers, and then doing, you know, big team fights at the end with all the abilities popping off. And I think that'd be pretty good. There's definitely something at the core of Highguard that's really cool, and who knows, maybe Wildlight will be able to harness that and change Highguard into something which can actually succeed long term. However, now that everybody's morbid curiosity has been satisfied and the hubbub about Highguard starts to die down, I fear that it might be too late and that it might be destined to join the likes of Battleborn and Concord in that big hero shooter graveyard in the sky. If nothing else, Highguard has made me realise that there is definitely still a place in my life for a sort of more casual multiplayer shooter that I can sort of play a few matches of at the end of the day. It's made me realise that I was missing something like that. But without significant changes, I just don't think Highguard is that game, unfortunately. And I guess I'll round off by saying that Highguard is free to play, so if there's anything about it that you think you're remotely interested in at all, download it and try it. There's nothing wrong with it. I would say give it a few games. There is a learning curve involved to understanding what's actually going on, so I wouldn't play like 1 or 2 games of it and then just abandon it. But sit with it for a couple hours and see if there's something there that you might like. You've got nothing to lose, really. And if you guys do have any suggestions for other PC shooters that you think I might like, please let me know in the comments down below.